So I want to welcome everybody tonight to our last Deyerle lecture series of this season. My name is Susan Versen, and I'm the head of reference here at Massanutten Regional Library. So this is our last Deyerle again, but we do an annual Deyerle program series on local history every year. They're programs on local history and culture presented by local authorities in their fields. This year focused on African American experiences in the Shenandoah Valley. The Deyerle program series on local history honors Dr. Henry Price Deyerle, a local physician, and his wife Mary, who was a nurse. As early collectors of antiques and artifacts produced in the Shenandoah Valley, the Deyerles were instrumental in raising awareness of and research into the valley's rich cultural history. In honor of their parents, the Deyerle children have supported Massanutten Regional Library for over 20 years, and it is because of them that this lecture series is made possible. Tonight, we will talk to local poet, playwright, and historian, Bri Madden-Olivares. She will discuss her experience researching local African American history and how that research contributed to her creative works, including Not Made for This, a play based on the narrative of Jourden Banks, who was enslaved on the Charles Yancey plantation in Elkton, Virginia. All the Deyerle programs are recorded and available on the MRL YouTube channel. We do have 3 upcoming author talks in March and April. The first one is tomorrow, Friday, March 19th at 3 p.m. with author Suzanne Woods Fisher, who will talk about her new book, The Moonlight School and the Seriousness of America's Literacy Problem. The next is Thursday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. with author Glenn Frankel, winner of the Pulitzer Prize, who will talk about his new book, Shooting Midnight Cowboy. And last, on Thursday, April 20th, author Andrew Marinis will talk about his book, Singled Out, The True Story of Glenn Burke. Burke is the inventor of the high five and also the first openly gay Major League Baseball player. Again, all these programs will be presented live via Zoom, so you can pre-register by visiting mrlib.org. And just another reminder that all branches of MRL are now open for browsing, so you can actually come in and visit us. And we are currently hosting the Celebrating Sims exhibit about local educator Lucy F. Sims at our central branch until the end of April. A few housekeeping items. This is a webinar format, so attendees will remain muted. But as you think of questions during the program, please type them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and I will share them with Bri. And now let me introduce tonight's speaker. Bri Madden-Olivares began writing poetry in the 3rd grade. She was infatuated by the works and creativity of Maya Angelou and Shel Silverstein and kept their works inside her desk. Growing up, Bri loved performing and often put on shows with her sister. They would write scripts, create costumes, and choreograph dances. As she got older, she put her creative pursuits aside and focused on her academics. Her only creative outlets consisted of occasionally performing poetry during open mics and competing on her high school's forensic team. She won multiple championships through her years of competition, including 3-time conference 29 champion, regional champion, and placing 3rd in the state during her senior year. She is currently attending the New School in New York City to study dramatic arts. After being an intern at the Shenandoah Valley Black Heritage Project, she was able to self-publish a book of poetry titled Jumping Off Clouds and Landing on Spaceships with the help of her mentor, Robin Lytle. She is currently writing a play about a July 4th weekend in Spanish Harlem. So we're going to start the program tonight with Bri performing a monologue from her play, Not Made for This. So Bri, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to disappear for a few minutes and then I'll come back.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be here. I'll be sharing some of my work really quickly. Okay, this is my poem called Young Always. Life is young this Sunday afternoon, a young that brings envy to the grown. The blue of the sky burns their eyes, but it's so beautiful they can't look away. It's dotted with clouds, and not in a way that seems like rain is coming, but if it did, it wouldn't be the worst thing. They say God sheds happy tears too. The grass is the same green that grown wishes they could roll around in, the same green that the other side can only talk about, the kind of green that flowers bury themselves in, the kind of green you have no choice but to grow in. Soda is too sweet for grown teeth that have been shown too much the bitterness of the world. Sandwiches stick to the roof of their mouths, reminds them of a feeling they don't want to name. Young don't know it yet. Knows hand games and hopscotch, friendship that's colorblind. But they don't worry about not being heard, not yet. Maybe never. Maybe they'll find their voice before they get a chance to have it stolen. And not in that loud way that it usually is, but subtly, delicately. And maybe this is enough, for today it exists. It's lung full of breath. And maybe this day is enough to sing a song, and not in a way that shouts despair, but a shout that just happens, excitable, that comes out in the way young kids know, the way that grown can only watch with nostalgic eyes, one that begins in the toes and moves through the fingertips, powers its way through the toothless grins of the young. It's warm, and in a way that stays still and knows who God is, where he is, at the picnic table nearby, in the trucks on their way, in the bodies that he created, holy, but not in that way. The ground is soft, not for planting, picking, or digging, but for dancing. The music is so loud it rattles their bones, and not in a way that will be a warning sound for generations to come, but in a way that makes them forget there was music in the first place. The trees dance too. They imitate the smiling faces of the young. Branches dance and whisper and whistle. They droop and rise and shudder, but not in a way that sends a chill down the spine. And it's all so breathtaking, the kind that pulls it gently from the lungs, then returns it, keeps life, not takes it. This company is the one you keep close to your heart, and in a way that will be a pure sound for generations to come, singing a melody of joyous shouts the way grown folks do, the way young can only watch with wide eyes, one that begins in your stomach and moves up to your chest and powers through the smiling faces of the grown. It's timeless, historical, present, a glimpse of the future, what the young will become, and nothing else matters. So many have gathered. Food from the dining table is brought back. Food from the dining room is brought back to the table, and the young don't understand it yet, but they will someday. But someday isn't today, so they eat until their stomachs are full. Young will become grown someday, but someday isn't Sunday. That Sunday isn't this one. Maybe it'll be another. When bones are too weary to imitate the trees, eyes too delicate to pick out shapes in the clouds, but can finally read words that serve as a warning, a lesson for generations to come. The ground is still soft. Earth reminds them it's still there. When the weight of the outside seeps in and feet become too heavy to lift, look up at the bright blue sky. Look down at the lush green grass. Look around and listen to the pure sound that you prepared before for yourself and for others, for the generation that has arrived. Let it sit at the table. Let it surround and embrace you. Let it heal the hurt and strengthen the shake in your voice. And not in a way that lasts forever. It's brief, but it's universal. And not in the way that is strong or inspirational, but human, young and grown. Thank you.
Yay! Sorry, since it's virtual, you can't hear the applause. I'm sure that it's out there. So, okay, so that was your poem, Young Always.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what that poem is about and what inspired it?
It's about Lewis Mountain, which was a campground that African Americans were able to go to. It was kind of the only place for us to go to back when things were segregated. And I actually got a lot of the inspiration from the poem from Miss Elaine Blakey. I had a interview with her over the phone, and she told me about her experience at Lewis Mountain and at the campgrounds, and just how much fun it was and how much life there was, and how it was just a place for comfort and a place to go to after church and have picnics and hang out with her friends and just have a good time. And I was really inspired by the conversation that I had with her. And Always Young Always was born from the conversation that I had with Miss Elaine Blakey.
Okay. And so did you do any additional research for that particular piece?
I looked at some pictures. I was able to perform on the campgrounds, which was really inspiring for the performance itself. But as far as writing it, my conversation with Ms. Blakey was the most helpful. I'm very much a person that I like to experience things as much as possible. And because of COVID, being able to hear her talk about it and hear the fondness in her voice when she was talking about it and being able to visualize it was so helpful. So I'm so grateful for the conversation that I had with Miss Blakey.
Okay. So how long have you been writing poetry?
I've been writing poetry since third grade. I used to only write stories. I was very much a big short story person and adventures and stuff like that. But then there was during poetry month in back in third grade, my teacher said, "Oh, our project was to put together a book of poetry," and she loved it. And then after that, she always like encouraged me to become a writer, and my mom did too. My mom really, she was the first person who introduced me to Maya Angelou, Shel Silverstein, and I just really resonated and connected with those authors. And I thought, man, what they do is really cool. It's like short stories, but like shorter, and it's so cool. And I just I've been in love since third grade. Yeah.
Do you still write non-poetry? Like, do you write prose pieces as well still, or did
now
you?
now it's gone from like poetry, like very structured and following rules. Like when I was younger, I feel like I followed a lot more rules, and
Mhm.
now it's kind of moved into like that prose and just kind of like a flow of whatever it is I kind of want to say type of thing. As long as it kind of keeps like a poetry rhythm, I write it. Yeah. So it's mainly prose now.
Okay. All right. So your family and you have two particular poets that you love. Anybody else or any other inspirations that you use for your work right now?
Um, right now, right now it's actually crazy because I feel like when you like look at the history of like my writing or like anyone's writing, you can always kind of see like different phases in their life. Like
Hmm.
I feel like in high school I wrote very much like how I was feeling and like just more external
Hmm.
things. Now it's more like nature, and I just like to feel and look around. If I am inspired by like the mountains, I'll write about the mountains. I'm very inspired by honestly anything and everything. A breeze could catch me the right way on a day, and I'm just like, oh, I need to write a poem about this moment. Like this is just so beautiful. Like I need to write it. My friends are amazing poets. I have a friend, M. Kamara, who's an amazing poet. Their work inspires me so much. Danette Smith, I love Danette Smith's work. They're an amazing poet. But yeah, I'm inspired by anything and everything, honestly.
Okay. Do you enjoy reading your own poetry? Like, is it difficult to read it? Like what you just did, is that difficult to do, or do you actually enjoy doing that? Or does it I'll let you answer before I
I
answer.
okay, here's the thing. I'm I love to perform. I love performing, and I love there's like a for me there's a time span. I can write a poem and then perform it within like a couple days, and I'm like, "Oh, like yes, I love it." Um I usually don't like what I write until like months later or like weeks later. I'll look at it again and think, "Oh, like that was actually kind of good. Like that was actually kind of good poem." Like Young Always, I read it like earlier this evening, and I was like, wait, this is the one that I want to share because I'm
Hmm.
really connecting with it today. It depends. Sometimes I'm like I like it, but I don't really know if I'm connecting with it right now or if I'm in that space right now. But yeah, for the most part, I like reading my poems. I don't read them after I've edited them. So I'll reread it to like edit and like look through
Hmm.
it, make sure it sounds good. But I won't read it for fun. No.
But do you mind performing them, like as a performance piece?
Yeah, I love performing. So
Okay.
any poem and any if anyone's like, "Oh, can you perform this one?" I don't mind at all. I love
Okay.
performing.
Are there things you won't write about?
Ooh. There used to be things that I would not write about explicitly. I think as I've gotten like I'm not old, but like as I've gotten older and like matured emotionally, like I've
Hmm.
matured emotionally and I've been able to like really connect with like the world and me, I'm pretty open with writing about anything that I kind of am inspired to write about.
Okay.
Sharing it is a different story, but if I feel
Okay.
inclined to write about it, for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. How long did Young Always take you to write?
Ooh. Honestly, after I was brainstorming while I was having my conversation with Miss Blakey, but once I had all my notes down, probably like a night, like a good, like maybe like an hour or two to kind of get all my thoughts together and then draft it out, look through it and make
Hmm.
sure that it like made sense and stuff like that. So maybe, maybe a couple hours or so.
Okay. Did you have a set list of questions you asked Miss Blakey, or did you
I
let her
did.
kind of talk?
I think it was a mix of both.
Okay.
I think I came in with questions, but she was so fantastic that she like told me everything and it was
Hmm.
incredible.
And how did you connect with her? Like, how did you find out about her?
I know her from
Okay.
like yeah, from past events and stuff like that. So we just kind of exchanged phone numbers and
Okay.
we had a phone call, yeah.
Was it part of your internship at the Black Heritage Project?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was.
All right. Okay, so the other piece that I wanted to talk about tonight was your play, Not Made for This, which was based on the life of Jourden Banks. So there is a narrative out there, he wrote a narrative. So how did you first encounter that?
I was first introduced to Jourden Banks with the Shenandoah Valley Black Heritage Project with Miss Lytle. They had done an event, was it 2018? I think it was 2018. And I was brought on very last minute, but thankfully I was, because it started an amazing relationship with the Shenandoah Valley Black Heritage Project and Miss Lytle and Monica. And it was March 2018, and I was really interested in being a part of it. And I wrote a couple poems for the event, and then I was signed on as an intern a couple months later during that summer. And then I was introduced with kind of finishing out his story, and then kind of putting together part one that they did and part two that I was kind of researching and combining it to make a play.
Okay. So how difficult was it researching somebody who was enslaved?
Thankfully, I got really lucky with the narrative that it kind of told everything from like his childhood to when he was finally free. So I got really, really lucky with the narrative that I got. So it wasn't too difficult to find the information. Context wise, obviously it was kind of difficult to like read, and just because of the context and like what it was about and stuff. But as far as researching and finding the information, it wasn't too difficult, thankfully.
Okay. Is that unusual? Is his narrative unusual?
No, I recommend that everyone reads it. It's a great narrative, but it wasn't unusual. It wasn't anything that maybe I hadn't heard before, but it was because it was basically like a first person account of what had happened and his life. I kind of needed to be in the right mindset for it because it's a first person account and it's dealing with the institution of slavery and hearing these atrocious stories and just, his like thoughts and his feelings. So it wasn't unusual, but it was on a different level, because I feel like sometimes when you do or hear about research on slavery, it's kind of like from an outside point of view, but seeing it from someone who's actually enslaved is a whole nother level.
So with the narrative, did you do any additional research to flesh out the play?
I did. I actually spent a lot of time at the library.
Excellent.
Yes, a lot of time at all the libraries, all the branches of the Massanutten Regional Library, getting all the information that I can just about slavery in general, slavery here in the Valley. I will go to thrift stores, any books that I can find about slavery in general, slavery in the Valley, anywhere that I can find it. I think I even took a road trip to North Carolina and found a book about like slavery there, just because I wanted to have as much like material as I could. So yeah.
Did you do any research on the family that enslaved him in Virginia?
Not as much. I mean, we visited the plantation quite a few times, and we learned about the history from the family that lives there now, because they are very open with like sharing, the history of the plantation and everything. But I did do more research on kind of on Jourden and like people who were enslaved and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah. For the words, I guess one of the things that intrigued me is that you had his voice, but then you had the voice of his parents, and his the owners, basically the owners who enslaved him. Was that in the narrative as well, or did you have to recreate those voices based on what he said?
The whole piece is like a mix. It's a mix of some that were like straight copied from the narrative, and then some straight, like I wanted to kind of make it a little more palatable and like just kind of easier to like understand. So some phrases or some maybe sentences or sections I would put in my own words, and then others it came straight from the narrative. But there's a portion where Mary Frances talks about not being able to say goodbye. And that was a beautiful poem written by Reverend Harold Brown Sr. So he wrote that portion of Mary Francis's saying, like, I didn't get to say goodbye, a beautiful portion. So yeah, it's kind of like a mix.
Okay. All right. How difficult was it to write the historical sections of that play?
Honestly, I don't think not too difficult, just because I had the narrative. Like this narrative, I know I keep saying it, but it's rich, it's full, it really is. And so I got really lucky, and I was able to kind of just take from the narrative. Again, a lot of research, watching a lot of movies about slavery, reading anything that I could about it. Kind of just put me in that mindset, and it didn't make it really too difficult when I set out to like write something or write a portion of the play or work on a scene or something. I was kind of just in the mindset, and it didn't make it too difficult or anything.
Okay. What was the most surprising thing you discovered while you were writing that piece?
Ooh. Honestly, because it's a first person account, and hearing, because I don't know how to explain it, but when you're in school, you always hear I think that's probably the most surprising part, the misconceptions that you learn about in school, or that's so widely spread about, no, like, like it wasn't this, it was that, like it was like indentured servitude, like it wasn't anything bad. And then like you read a narrative and it's like the first person account, and you say, oh, well, this is the truth. Well, this is like what actually happened. And there's actually a quote that I would like to read, that when I first read it, I thought, oh, it really like lit a fire under me. And I knew that I was going to be very, very excited to kind of write this. But it was basically talking about the Civil War and everything. And there's a line right here that says, that slavery is the primary cause of the present crisis in America. No candid man who is at all informed in the affairs of the country can deny. So you can't even deny, unfortunately, a lot of people now, they think, oh, like, no, it was states' rights, like it wasn't slavery, da 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 da. But here it is right here saying, I'm trying to think who, it was someone giving a speech, like a historical figure giving a speech and saying this, like slavery is the reason why the Civil War is happening. And when I find the person who said it, but yeah, that was basically a line that kind of really jumped out at me and surprised me and really lit a fire under me and said, oh, yes, I am devoted to telling the truth of this time and am excited to tell this story.
Okay. So you used primary sources from the time period. And so you were going through like newspapers and speeches.
Yeah.
Okay. And incorporating that into this. Okay.
For sure.
That's great. So you have the historical part of that piece, and then you have the modern part where you portray Amina. So what or who was your inspiration for Amina?
So Amina, okay, so there's the last monologue where I say, oh, it's 10 p.m. My cousin is home and he likes to draw and he is so creative, da da da. That's based off my actual cousin. His name is Amin, and it's actually based off experiences I had with him. But I write so much about Amin, and he has an older sister named Amina. And I said, you know what? No, I'm gonna name this modern character Amina, and all of her experiences come from like actual real life experience, and being in high school and just dealing with being Black and young in America. And so it comes from real life experiences, Amina's character. And I really wanted to bridge the gap between the past and the present. I needed to. It was one of the priorities, because I feel like sometimes we can kind of get lost and think, oh, it was so long ago. When we think about it, wasn't that long ago. And just to kind of emphasize how many things have changed and how many things have actually stayed the same, but are maybe just called a different name. And especially I wanted another young character, because Jourden was also young. Jourden, around the time that he's deciding that he always knew he wanted to be free, but deciding to like actually go and escape, he's like a young teen and early 20s. Okay. So I wanted to have another kind of point of view here in 2018, 2015. So sorry, not 2015, 2018,
Mhm.
2019 era. Yeah.
Okay, so you had counterpoint characters. Okay. Did your cousin know you were writing about him?
Did he know? I think he like knew. He probably did, honestly.
Okay.
But Amina didn't. I never
Mhm.
told her that I had named the character after her until she saw it. I don't know if she saw the newspaper article about it, or when she saw the because they came to see the performance when we performed it, but she saw the, what is it called, like the playbill, like the flyer pamphlet.
Mhm.
And she saw her name and she was very surprised, but like a happy surprise.
Okay. I just want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Bri, just use the Q&A box down at the bottom. Just because the webinar setup is, there's no capability for attendees to talk. So I just want to remind everybody of that. Okay, so you've done this as a video. Actually, let me go back. So you talked about Amina in modern times, and she has some frustrations with her surroundings and her classmates. So is this poetry and this writing an outlet for you to express some of your frustrations and anger in current times and from personal experience? So did you use this piece to express some of your frustrations?
Definitely. Definitely. Especially at the time that I wrote it. I mean, I wrote it and we kind of performed it, and it was like, when we performed it, I was already kind of out of high school, but I mean, I was only 1 year out of high school, so I still remembered some experience and stuff like that. So kind of like I was saying before, like when you look back at like the history of like my writing, and you can kind of tell, like in high school, like this was like, poetry was definitely like a way to kind of vent and like express my frustrations and like loneliness and sadness and just difficult things and emotions and stuff like that. So for sure it was an outlet, and also a way to kind of connect and say, anyone else who's going through this, like, you're not alone. Trust me, like, you're not alone. We're all in this together.
What kind of feedback did you get about particularly that closing monologue from peers specifically?
They really resonated with it. I think I had some teachers and principal from high school actually come and see it when we did it at Sims, and I always say it, very grateful and very, very appreciative for the teachers that I had in high school, because they really were there for me, and really helped me kind of navigate the world and difficult stuff that it's high school. Being Black and young in America, they were very. I'm very thankful for them. So yeah, my peers were receptive. Especially, I think it resonated with my little cousins, especially, and they connected with it as well.
Okay. So you say you performed it live once and then on video. So what was the difference between the two performances? Like when you performed it live, was it the same as the video that we have access to?
The live performance is a little longer. It's a little, we have a little more of the play. We have the whole play in the live performance, basically. But in the video, we did sections, we did certain parts. So it's not the whole entire play, but it's very significant moments. We had a lot of music. We had live music in the but we actually have live music in the video too. So I think the only difference might be that we just did certain sections in the video portion.
Okay. So you obviously performed it once live pre-COVID. So the video was made during COVID. Is it the same cast for both, or?
Yeah, thankfully they were very, very eager to be back and perform it, and we were actually able to shoot it like on the plantation. So that was also another, like, very grateful for the family for allowing us to be on the property and be on the plantation to record it. But yeah, it was the same cast, so it was great. It was great that they were so eager to do it again, which was great. And Robin, Lionel, Monica were very, very helpful in the whole process, because it was during COVID, and just a lot of personal and like family things were going on, and they were very, very helpful with that whole process and getting it recorded and getting the cast and getting everything organized and stuff like that. So I'm very, very grateful for their help doing that as well, and the cast as well. They're just great.
Did you cast it yourself, or did you have like a
No. I had a lot of help from
Okay.
Robin Lytle. Yeah. I had a lot of help from her and reaching out to the community and seeing who was willing to be a part of it and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The music in that, how did you choose the music and the images that you used in the video specifically?
Miss Lytle actually chose all those images, and the music, I think we use the same music that we used during the play. Let me see. The music, when I first kind of started picking the music for the play, I would just kind of listen to shout songs, a lot of shout songs, and a lot of like gospel and like church music. I would just walk around VCU listening to music to see which one like fit what scene and fit what situation and stuff like that. But Before I Be a Slave was definitely the biggest one that I really wanted to use. So I just kind of like listened to as much music as I could and picked the ones that that we wanted to use. But for the video portion specifically, Miss Lytle was very, very involved in picking the music and the pictures, which I'm so grateful for. Her editing is incredible.
Yes, yeah. It's fantastic. So you filmed it at Riverbank. Am I saying it is Riverbank, right?
Yes.
So how did you all get in touch with the current owners?
They're very receptive and very we've kind of always, I think Ms. Lytle's always kind of been in touch with them, and so have I, and they're always very open about, you guys can come over and we can talk about the history of the plantation. I can tell you all I know, and just literally like sitting at their table in their kitchen and like just sitting and talking, and then taking a tour around the plantation was very helpful too.
Okay. And where the scenes with the mother of our film, where Mary is filmed, are those the remains of the enslaved cabins, or there's like a fireplace? And I'm just wondering how many of the structures are still left on the plantation. Do you have any memory of that?
Oh, I actually don't have any memory of that, but I'm pretty sure it's been pretty well contained and like not like touched much.
Not a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
How hard was it to film during COVID? Like, how did you manage all the logistics of that? Like, how was the creative process affected by the pandemic?
It wasn't too difficult. I think once we kind of had like which scenes we're gonna do, and it was like a lot of planning that kind of went into it, so that once we arrived at the house and the plantation, it was very much like, okay, we're gonna be set up here, and like, got it done and quick and easy. Not too difficult at all.
Okay.
We all had our masks. We weren't really too like close. We did a lot of social distancing and stuff like that.
Okay. And then I have one last question before we have a couple of other questions coming for you. But so you've talked a little bit about this, but how important is it to you to have Black American voices create art out of their own history?
I mean, I think it's as important as creating art about our present, and our future. I think our voices should be just as highlighted as anyone else's voices, and that's why I'm always so grateful of the work of the Shenandoah Valley Black Heritage Project, because they're so passionate about uncovering history that isn't told like in school. That's why when I first read Jourden's story and I first read the narrative, I was just so surprised, because I was like, wow, like we don't learn this. But then also, I know you guys had him as a guest, Bo Dickinson. I did what is it called? I did Farmville, a Farmville event with him when I was at Spotswood. Owen Longacre as well. I know they worked together to bring African American history to the forefront in high schools and in schools around Harrisonburg and stuff. So always grateful for the people that are really devoted to uncovering history that is untold and bringing it to Black voices for us to tell it. And I mean, it's important. I just think it's so important. Like, just tell your story.
Mhm.
If you have a story to tell it, regardless if it's about the past, the present. If you want to talk about your future, go for it. I think it's so important so that people who are younger than you or your age, older than you, whatever, can look at you and say, oh, well, if they can do it, I can do it,
Mhm.
and just, making sure people know your voice is important. And just tell your story. Yeah, tell a story. Any story you want to tell. Tell a story.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things Bo talked about in the first Deyerle was the importance of getting local, especially local history, and
Yes.
tying that to national.
Yes.
And so you definitely do that in the Not Made for This piece too, because it's a local figure, but obviously in a bigger context. So yes, Bo definitely is as an educator is passionate about that. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a question, and the attendee says, thank you for sharing your enthusiasm and your writing. And now that you're studying at the New School, writing drama and pieces for theater, how would you compare, which you've already done too, how do you compare writing drama to writing poetry?
Hi, Gabe and Teresa. I miss you guys so much, and I hope you're doing well. But can't wait to meet for coffee again when all this is over. Cannot wait to see you guys in New York again. But oh, such a big difference. Such a big difference. Now that I've actually like had playwriting classes, it's a big difference. Playwriting is more of like a really a big narrative. Poetry, you have a chance to tell a story, but it's definitely a lot shorter. But writing like plays gives you a lot more opportunity to use people and like have as many characters as you want, have as much dialogue as you want, and back and forth and back
Mhm.
and forth. But actually taking playwriting classes and learning how to write plays from playwrights, it's a big difference from writing poetry. But I mean, but it's funny because just like what I did with the day in the life poem and kind of turned it into separate monologues for Nina, writing poetry definitely helps me when writing plays and vice versa. But sometimes poems, if there's a line or if there's like a topic or a section that I'm like, this is giving me like vibes that I can put in a play somewhere, I can usually throw it in a play. The play that I'm working on right now
Mhm.
about the July 4th weekend in New York, right now it's currently called Summertime. I had written a poem called Summertime Movie, and Summertime Movie it has become Summertime the play. So they're different, but I definitely use both of them to help the other.
So you've talked a little bit about inspirations for poetry. What about inspirations for playwriting?
Inspiration for playwriting is kind of the same. Inspirations for playwriting, though, for me, the only difference would be I get more inspiration from dialogue. My favorite playwright is August Wilson. I learned so
Mm-hmm.
much from his work, so much. And I didn't realize why I connected so much with him until I realized that he started out writing poetry. He didn't start
Okay.
out in the theater. He started out by writing poetry. And so that's what sets him apart as a playwright. He is very devoted to listening. He values listening and he values dialogue a lot, and so do I. And so for playwriting, especially, what inspires me is dialogue. Like if I hear something, I'm like, ooh, that'll make a good line for a play. Here in the house, my family already knows that anything they say is like free range. My dad is like a whole character. Like things that he says, I'm like, like nobody ever says that. I'm definitely gonna steal that and put it in a play. I'll give you credit for it, but like I'm definitely taking that. So yeah, Summertime Movie inspired Summertime, the play. So poetry, poems that I've written, a lot of moments inspire plays for me, because I feel like with moments you can like stretch them out even more. Because you have a moment and you're like, oh, like I never want this to end. You
Mm-hmm.
can keep it alive in a play. So yeah.
Um, do you, I guess I should ask, do you miss live theater?
I do. I do. I'm not gonna even
That
lie.
was a softball.
I admire people who are able to do virtual performances, because I think like their creativity and their mind to kind of make it into a virtual play is incredible. I was actually a part of a 10-minute play festival at my school where I wrote a play for it to be performed like virtually, but I didn't direct it. So I admire the people who can direct it and who can like kind of see it and know how to do it virtually instead of live. When I write a play, like I think of how it's going to be performed live. I love feeding off of energies of people like in the live audience. Like I feel like there's nothing like stepping into a theater and you like see a, I don't listen, honestly, I don't care if it's a packed house or if it's like 4 people sitting like scattered around. Someone has come to see a show. We're going to give them a show. I just feel like there's nothing like that, like feeding off of people. So that long-winded answer, yes, I definitely miss performing live. So I'm very excited to when we can all safely do it again. And I invite all of you to come see Summertime when I finish it and put it on at school or somewhere.
Well, you can come bring it to Massanutten Regional Library. There you go.
I would love to. I would love to.
Okay, we would love to have it. So let's see. I have another question here. So do you plan to continue to write poetry and write plays? So you may recognize who this is from. She said, which you kind of answered already, but I'm very proud of you. And of course, your #1 fan. So I'm going to, it might
Hi,
be
Ma. Hi, Ma. Thank you for watching. Love you very much. What's up? I hope you heard I shouted you out earlier. But yes, Ma, of course, I plan on still writing. Except actually, that's a very good question because I wanted to actually stop writing poetry around 2018 when I was a freshman in VCU. I didn't want to write poetry anymore. I was feeling really uninspired. I just was kind of like, maybe I should focus on something else. At that time I was at VCU to study social work, and I was just not myself, and I didn't want to write poetry anymore. And I went to an open mic. Freer's Flower Poetry at JMU does a lot of like open mics, and they come bring featured poets. And for that year, the featured poet was Dominique Christina. And the poem that I wrote for that event was actually the day in the life poem that turned into Mina's monologue. So, I performed that, and that was kind of like my last like hoorah. I was kind of like, oh, like, this will be the last poem that I write for a while. I don't really think I'm not really feeling it right now. I'm just going to take a break. And she had a meet and greet afterwards, and she told me like, don't stop writing. She goes, don't stop, like, keep writing. And that was all she needed to tell me, because this is Dominique Christina. I look up to Dominique Christina so much. So any of you guys, look up her poetry. She's incredible. And she said that to me, and I said, oh, okay, I'm not gonna stop writing. And I think I quit writing for like a day, and then she told me not to stop writing, and I said, oh, okay. So no, I don't think there will ever come a time where I don't want to write a poem or a play. I mean, I've got plays lined up that I want to write, and writing has always been my outlet. I don't think there'll ever be a time where I don't want to write as an outlet. I'll always kind of add things to my arsenal to learn how to like express myself. I would really love to learn to dance. My sister's the dancer. She's got all the rhythm, but I think it's so cool that people can dance and like, express themselves through that. Singing, I think is so cool. My cousin who draws, I think he's the coolest person ever. My other little Amina can like play piano. I think it's incredible. I'll always add things to my arsenal, but I don't think I'll ever take out writing for sure.
Or a particular form of writing, at least. You're not gonna change that. Do you have to like step away from one versus the other? Like if you're writing a play, can you not write poetry? Or if you're writing, like, do you balance them? Do you do one more often than the other at certain times?
Oh, right now I'm definitely writing plays more than I'm writing poetry. I don't like kind of say I'm not writing it, but if an idea comes, I'll write it or something like that. But right now, my season right now is focusing on plays. Okay. But yeah, it depends.
Your mom says she did miss your shout out. And don't stop writing.
Thanks, Mom.
But then your poetry collection.
Yes.
So we have it at the library. It will be in our catalog tomorrow, hopefully. But they want to know where they can get it besides the library.
I've still got a bunch of copies in my house. You can email me, or I don't know if I can.
You can, if you send that to me, when I send out the recording, I can, if you're comfortable, we can put whatever contact information you want out there.
So, yeah, my email will be sent out. Just email me. No problem. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay. And do you plan to publish your plays?
Oh, for sure. For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. And then somebody asked about your current project, which you talked a little bit about. So what inspired your play based in Spanish Harlem?
Lots of things. I always knew that I wanted to write a play about Spanish Harlem. I just didn't know what I like, when I was going to write it, when I was going to get around to doing it. And so I think the thing that first I wrote the poem. Summertime Movie definitely inspired kind of the foundations of Summertime. And then one time I was hanging out with my cousin DJ, my sister Malaysia, and my friend Cass, who's like a childhood friend, and we were all up at her apartment. And this was 2 summers ago. So Summertime has been a process. This was 2 summers ago, and we're all, as you do when you're young and in New York, we were just having fun and goofing off, whatever. My cousin DJ, he looks out the window, and Cass has a beautiful view of Spanish Harlem, and he looks out the window and he goes, man, like, do you know how lucky we are? Like, we're so blessed to be, like, we're young and we're in New York on like a Friday night. Do you know how many people would kill to be us right now? And he said that, and I kept that with me in my back pocket. And I kept that with me, and I was like, oh, you're right. Like this is one of those moments that I wanted to hold on to forever. And so I started drafting Summertime. I was a background actor on In the Heights. They released a new trailer or whatever. I was a background actor. Yeah, my sister and I, we were background actors for In the Heights. But unfortunately, in the Latino community, I am we're an Afro-Latino family. And unfortunately, in the Latino community, Afro-Latinas are usually excluded. And so I was very inspired by kind of that feeling as well. And I just remember thinking, man, like, I just want to write something like that people who look like me, who talk like me, who have thick hair, dark skin. I mean, I'm not dark skin, but like for my sister, especially, she's like darker skin than I am. It's like a lot of colorism and stuff in the community. And I really wanted to address it by just writing a play with us in the forefront and with us as the lead. And so I started drafting it. And then I knew that I wanted it to be 3 people. Like, I always knew I wanted it to be like a trio. I knew that I wanted it to be about love and community and stuff like that. And I started drafting multiple drafts. I have like, I think 50 like first drafts of Summertime. And so I started writing it. And then I kind of had it on the back shelf and didn't really, start really write it until I was in school, and I actually started learning like how to write a play, and I was learning from my teachers and stuff, and we were assigned to write a love scene based off The Red Coat by John Patrick Shanley. And so I wrote a little love scene between 2 people in Spanish Harlem who have been friends for 18 years not 18 years, since they were kids, and now they're going off to college. And so I thought, oh yeah, I'll keep that in my back shelf. And then I took another playwriting class last semester, and that's when I actually started like writing Summertime, like the play. And so thank you, DJ. DJ is the one who said that, oh, we're so lucky. And that's what's catapulted Summertime into what it is now.
Okay. I think, so you've talked about Summertime Movie. So I think somebody thinks that's a screenplay, but that's actually a poem, correct?
Yeah. Okay. It was the title of the poem, because I think the first line is something like, I want to make a movie called Summertime or something like that. So I just called it, I'm terrible with titles. I just called it Summertime Movie because it's about wanting to make a movie about summertime.
Okay. Well, have you thought about writing screenplays after you conquer playwriting?
For sure. Summertime was actually, okay, so Summertime Movie, the poem first, right? And then DJ had graduated from from a school in Colorado. I don't know what school it was, but he graduated with like he'd been studying film for the past 4 years, and he had a lot of his film school buddies like in the house and stuff like that. And I was inspired to make it into a short film first because he was going to be there for like a couple months, and I thought, oh, like he could help me like make it into a movie, but we never got around to it. And then I just was like, oh, I'll turn it into a play, it's fine. but eventually I would love, absolutely, that's like dream of mine to make Summertime into a movie eventually.
Would you ever want to take that step to directing either your plays or your movies, or just write?
I would like to write and be in them. Directing, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to, but I think because I've written it and I want to be in it, I think I'll leave directing for someone else. And the new school has an incredible director. So like when we put it on in school, I definitely want to ask one of my new school directors to do it.
How has anybody ever read your poetry to you? Like, or like, is it difficult to have somebody else read your pieces with you there?
Yes, actually, not with me in the audience, but one time my friend, everything comes full circle. Listen, one time my friend was doing like a 24-hour like poetry event. She had the hour like 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. She goes, oh, yeah, if you're up, like come watch, right? So I say, okay. My friend actually, who I mentioned earlier, Kamara, who's a big inspiration for me. She recited one of my poems, and guess what poem it was? Summertime movie. And I never heard anyone else recite it, but hearing her recite it, I was like, oh wow. Hearing it in a different voice kind of, it gives me like different perspectives. And I thought, oh wow, like I never heard it like in that rhythm or like in that way before. And it's so cool. It was really cool hearing her recite it. So yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked about for dialogue, from a dialogue perspective, is there a movie or movies that stand out for you as good examples? I'm guessing.
Ooh, for dialogue. Honestly, I'm probably gonna rely back on August Wilson. Fences is incredible just because they took the play, and like if you read the play and watch the movie at the same time, you could honestly watch the movie on mute and it's still following the same dialogue as the play. So that's why I love the dialogue of Fences, and then also of course the performances of Viola Davis and Denzel Washington. But I think Fences probably right now is the only one that I know for a fact that their dialogue is inspiring and really helpful when writing or whatever, or thinking about taking that transition from writing a play and turning it into a movie and seeing what's possible.
What is it about August Wilson in particular that inspires you?
August Wilson just has this way of writing that makes you feel like you are sitting in his world. He creates the world, and he leaves the door open. You can either come in and sit down, or you can't, but the door's open. So regardless if you're in the house or not, you're gonna hear it and you're gonna feel like you're in that world. When I first read Fences, I felt like I was in the backyard with them. When I first read Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I felt like I was like in the studio. When I first what was the other one? Gem of the Ocean I read, and I felt like I was like in the living room just like watching everything go on. He writes how people talk, and I feel like sometimes when people write plays, obviously plays are meant to be performed, but when you write lines that's like performative, there's kind of like a little bit of a disconnect. But August Wilson writes so perfectly that you just feel like you're listening to like a conversation. You just happen to like walk into a place and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on. Okay, I'll follow along. Like, I'll listen to your rules. He creates the rules, you abide by them, and it works perfectly. He's incredible.
Okay. I think, well, we've reached the end of my questions. So is there anything that you want people to know that it's important from an artistic perspective about writing or the creative process?
Do what you want. Don't think that there's any story that if we're being honest, every story has already been told, but all of our voices are so unique that your voice matters. I don't care if you've never seen yourself on the screen. I don't care if you've never seen yourself on a stage. I don't care if you've never seen yourself represented. You know, just do it. Just do it, because you can do it, and people are gonna eat it up and love it. So write what you want to write, and even if people don't, just do it. Just, just write what you want to write. Tell the stories that you want to tell, because the stories that you tell, because it's you telling it, because it's your unique voice, it matters. It matters. Don't let anyone tell you that, try to bring you down about it or whatever. No, it matters. Tell the story that you want to tell. Tell the truth. Tell your honest, authentic truth, and don't be afraid of doing it. Just go for it.
Well, I'm going to leave it there because those are great closing words. That's fantastic. Yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your pieces, your plays, your poetry, the videos, which we have links for on our Facebook page. And again, Jumping Off Clouds and Landing on Spaceships is available, and we will include information about how to contact Bri to get your own copy, but we do have a copy at the library. So any other closing remarks?
Just thank you all for asking questions and being here. Thank you, Massanutten Regional Library, for inviting me. I just feel so special and lucky to be able to talk about my work. I think that's so cool. Thanks for just being awesome. Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
All right, we'll take it. Yes, so everybody, thank you for coming, and have a good night, and we will see you at another event soon.
Thank you, guys.